How you doing back there, Phil? That's Phil. What's up, everybody? I'm just here a little early. In case any of y'all wanted to visit the link a little bit early. Got some feedback last time that there was not access right at 7, even though I thought I started at 7. But I just wanted to be here a little bit early in case you wanted to come see. If this does make it into the video, great. If it doesn't, I'll just probably edit it out, and that's okay too. You like the zit I'm working on? Cooking that up. Been cooking that for a couple of days. It's one of the good things about being in social distancing is that I don't have to worry about pimples on my face because I can see anybody, or at least I can just change my angle and nobody sees exactly what I'm doing, so it's fine. But I hope everybody's doing great today. It rained here, which was delightful because it was nice, sleepy quarantine weather. Nothing like a good shower from overhead, nectar from the sky, dewdrops from heaven, to make sure that our crops get watered and everything. So yeah, we're gonna get started here in just a couple minutes. There's my I just got a new white belt here right behind me. His name is Phil Adummy. He's new around town, new around these parts. He's gonna watch me draw too. I think I realized this here pretty recently. A lot of the purchasing decisions that I've made lately have been yellow. And so I'm wondering, maybe either yellow is going to be like the color of the season, because I'm usually pretty good at picking that out. Like I think last year it was purple, and I got on the purple tip pretty early. I was like, yeah, what's up? I'm gonna buy some purple. And it worked out, man. I had some nice purple in my wardrobe, still got it. I tend to only buy a couple of clothing items a year. So I'm a terrible minimalist, but I try to practice minimalism as best I can. Which it's a wonderful philosophy if you don't live in Texas. But I live in Texas, and the great thing about Texas is we've got more space than we need. Unless you live in the heart of Austin, then you probably need more space than you can afford, because everything is just crazy expensive down there. Oh my gosh, cost of living. But at any rate, yeah, so I figure it looks like it's about 7, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody. This is episode 3 of Let's Draw Together with Seanzy. That's me, I'm Seanzy, and it is my privilege and joy to share some time with you today and share with you some techniques that I like to use when it comes to drawing people. We've got a pretty packed agenda for tonight. I've spent some time thinking about what I think will help us be more successful with these videos. I want to make sure that you, the audience, are getting plenty of good value from these videos. I want to make sure that the drawings are visible. If not, then let me know. I did finally figure out how to have a comment box. So if you have a comment or a question to ask live, or if you want me to recover a concept, please let me know. This is an invitation for everyone to let me know what what you're going through, if you're struggling with a specific part of the technique and whatnot. I want to start the video off just by talking about the tools for success that we are going to need. I'm a big believer in setting yourself up for success from the beginning. That way, when you're actually deeper in the process, you don't have to worry so much about what is going on. So for me, I've got a couple of tools for success. I don't know why that's so hard to say. Probably because it's a long day and I've been talking a lot. I'm going to talk a little bit more because I'm going to do one of my favorite things, which is teaching. I'm going to teach one of my favorite things, which is drawing. So I am, like I said, overjoyed that I'm doing this, and then hopefully someone out there is watching and getting staying a little bit more sane for that. So let's talk about our tools for success. I've got a cup here. You can see I've already got some shavings in there. Those shavings came from applying my pencil sharpener, which is another tool for success, to my pencil. This is just a regular old number 2 pencil. these first videos and a lot of the videos, we'll just be using one of these. I also included, just for fun, just for some grins, I grabbed a purple, speaking of purple earlier, a purple colored pencil. That way I've got a little bit of contrast to work with. A pink colored pencil, so that I've got a lighter tone to lay down. And then just for grins, just to see what might happen, I brought a brush pen, which has got a nib like that. And I'm going to use the contrast between Phil's gi top and the brush tip so that you can see what that looks like. So today we're going to talk about drawing people. Last time we talked about using shapes to construct the face. And today what I'm going to do is use shapes to construct the body. Drawing the body, that's probably one of the most expressive tools that we have. So much of communication is done through our hands, through the way that we move our arms, through our faces, whether we want to have big body language or we're going to have small, shrunken down body language. Every little movement that we do tells a story, whether maybe it's about how we feel or what we're thinking or whatnot. But the wonderful thing about art is that we get to convey those feelings on paper using the tools that we have at hand. So first, to start off, what I want to do is I'm going to show you guys how to draw a full human body on the page. But I'm going to start talking about a couple of principles first. And we've talked about shape in their flat form. But now I want to start talking about shape in volume. So what I'm first going to do is just draw a couple of shapes here loosely. So we've got an idea. That looks kind of like a block there. This is a circle. I'm going to add volume to it by adding another horizontal and vertical line to make it look almost like a globe. It's almost like I've got these series of little circles around that are giving this shape really some substance here. With those lines, those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines? I don't know. 7 lines. I went from having a flat circle to now I've got a fully round object. And that's going to be important because, I don't know about you. I mean, you're looking at me through a computer screen, and so I look pretty flat right now. But when I'm not on a computer screen or phone screen or tablet screen, whatever, I'm actually a round object. I've got dimension, I've got sides, I've got all sorts of things, tops, bottoms, all those things. So all things have dimensions. And when we're drawing bodies and drawing people, we want to be thinking about them in terms of their three-dimensionality. So we'll be using these principles throughout the lesson today as we talk, and I'll be showing you different techniques and different places where you can start to show this volume in order to start building the shape that's in front of you. Now you can, the great thing about drawing is, philosophically, there's not a right or a wrong way to do this. I reject a lot of ideas. Obviously you have to learn them first, meaning that, to be a good writer, you have to learn the rules of the language, and then you can choose which rules to follow and which rules to break. Poetry, if read in a sentence, does not make sense, but when you look at the way that it's constructed, you often wind up with a beautiful piece of art through rhythm, through sound, through tonality, repetition of sounds that you wouldn't have had if you were obeying the strict rules of grammatical correctness. And we're going to do the same thing with art. The fun thing is that we get to play with proportions, we get to play with relationships and ratios and spaces, distance, close, far. My hands are the same size, but on the screen, one is starting to get smaller, one is starting to get bigger. And that's called perspective. That's called forced perspective on a flat surface. So we're going to think about that today. I'm going to show you some basic principles to draw a flat person, just so that you can understand the constituent parts of what a body is made of. from a line standpoint. And then we're going to get into the body and we're going to start building it out so that it looks like a fully round object. So what I want you to do, I invite you to follow along. Like I said, we've got the comment box open. So if you have questions, please just give me a shout. Let me know. I'm here to help, and I want you to really maximize your success from your drawing classes. And that's it. Let's draw together. Let's draw together with Seanzy. So one of the first things that we did last time is we talked about the head as a ball. This is a great tool because it allows me to basically define where that head is. If I take my hat off, scoot down a little bit. The head is a ball, and it's attached to a pillar. The pillar is a neck, but the neck is really just a continuation of the whole spine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that ball, I'm going to put a stick on it. That's a line. Really easy. I didn't really think about it too much. Just drew a straight line down. That's because I'm going to draw a person looking forward at you. Now, what I'm next going to do is I'm going to map the chest by drawing a rectangle. And now I've got a body, or at least the beginnings of a body. From here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to attach some circles to the end, just like that. And now I've got head, shoulders, and the hips, the bottom of the body. There's a couple of different other ways that you can construct a body, but this kind of gives you an overall idea of what the torso looks like. We kind of got the cone idea from our first lesson. That's what the neck is. The neck is basically a cone. It's really straight up and down, but we tend to have these trapezius muscles here on the side. Some people have really big trapezius muscles. It's like, whoa, huge. Like, guy, get out of the gym. Like, take a drawing class or something. But some people, don't. They've got skinny little necks. They got little tiny necks. Some people say pencil necks. Maybe not the most complimentary term, but it is what it is. So now what they also have is they tend to have arms. Most people have arms. Not everybody, but that's okay. And arms come to a joint called an elbow. Now, here's an interesting thing about the body. The body has really only a couple of points of articulated rotation, meaning that your wrists can turn upside down like this, whereas your humerus really can't. It can only go up and down or to the side. It can draw circles. It can do movements like this, but I can't really take my arm and twist it like that, right? Independent of itself. I can do the same thing from my ankle to my shin. I can rotate my feet in different directions. If I could show you that. Basically, I can take my feet and go out like this, okay? And that's because my humerus, which is what connects my shoulder to my elbow, is one bone. My forearms are two bones. So I'm going to draw two bones here, just as an idea. Now I'm going to just put a placeholder circle. I don't think the hands work best as a circle. I think the hands work best as more of a shovel shape. But for the purposes of this, well, let's just go ahead and do it. Boop, shovel shape. Boop, shovel shape. And that's good. All right, so we're already starting to see a human being. Now, within the body, I've got here basically core mass. That's going to be the ribs. That's the rib cage. Another way to draw this shape is to kind of draw a soft upside down heart right here. And there you go. So now I've got two ways to represent the core torso of somebody. I can do a circle or I can do an upside down heart. Your choice, however you like to do it. I will sometimes use the circle. I will sometimes use the upside down heart. I like the upside down heart maybe sometimes a little bit more because when I represent something in the side, I'm using the same shape dynamics in my mind to think about how lines are going to flow over that shape. What? I know, I know that that's a lot, and in an introductory course, I don't expect you to fully get those concepts yet, But as time goes on, I do see it as my job to explain that to you, so you'll understand. Okay, then we're going to get into the hips, and I like to represent the hips, or this part, kind of as like a U, or like a long half oval, like that. And then there you go. That's the hips. All in this area is the guts, and where things, kind of go in and go out and digest and all that good stuff. It's fun, that's your body, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so this is the interesting thing about the body, though. A lot of people, when they draw legs, they tend to draw legs straight down like that. And that's not wrong, right? That's not wrong, but I don't think that it's the best way to draw a leg. What I think, and I do this in my drawings whenever I'm drawing the femur, which is this part here, I like to start with a line here, and I bring it out, and I bring it in, almost like a zigzag, right? And I'm going to change that angle because it looks a little weird. I'm looking at it from a different angle, but that's okay. So what I like to do is I like to bring my hip out, bring it in, and then bring it out again. And that gives me the overall shape of the femur, because when we actually look at it, it's a ball hitch joint, or it's a ball socket joint, excuse me. That's the proper medical term for layman, I guess. That's me, whatever. So I've got a ball socket joint here, ball socket. The arm is actually the same way, where I would represent here and then do the humerus bone like this, because I've got the scapula, which is the shoulder, and the scapula is basically a triangle there like that. But back to the femur, I'm doing this here because this gives me a couple of different reference points as far as how I'm drawing the body and making the body happen. So I've got my head, I created my spine. Now, the box here is not always necessary. It's just to define the torso. So for this first one, I went ahead and did it. As we move on and do the next couple of drawings for representing the body, I'm actually going to abandon that rectangle idea. It's just to show you what it is. It will also come in handy if I were to talk about representing males versus females, or cis normal males and females in a drawing situation. In today's day and age, culturally, there's not a right or wrong way to do this kind of thing. But looking at general shapes in the illustrative world, there are general shape rules and proportions that you follow, right? So I've got my ribs to my hips, and I'm doing the hips. I'm kind of doing a Z, a long Z, like that. And just like my forearms, as I mentioned with my forearms, I'm going to just put a little notch out there for a thumb. Woo, all right, good thumbs. Just like my forearm is two bones to allow for rotation, my calves are also two bones. So I'm going to go ahead and draw, excuse me, two bones coming in here like this. Now, I'll do a little ball here for an ankle, and that's to show that there's rotation possibility there. And then I'll draw a triangle to represent a foot. Now, generally when I do a triangle, I'll do a right angle triangle if I'm looking forward at the foot. If I'm going sideways, I'll do more of an oblong foot like that, right? So I guess you could even say that's a right triangle, because if I did that, that's a right triangle. But basically it's here. I will actually break this down into two shapes here, where I've got the front of the foot and then the back of the foot right here like that, right? And then that's how I get more of a foot-looking shape. But anyway, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. This is more about really representing the front of the body so that I can understand where I am. And I'm just going to finish by adding another shovel shape to the front here. So there's a couple of the same shape patterns that are showing up when I actually draw the body. The first is going to be the head. So I've got the circle of the head. I've got the circle on the shoulders, circle on the shoulders. These represent your deltoids, which is your shoulder muscles. This guy's jacked. Doesn't have much of a neck though, so my bad. Been hitting the gym too much. Then we got the humerus, which is where the bicep and the tricep live. And we got the forearm, which is just like that. Now I'm going ahead and adding some muscle mass here. I'm being sketchy with it. I'm not really too concerned because this is a sketch here. But what I am illustrating is, I've been able to set down a pretty easy guide for myself. And now all I have to do is start connecting the lines, and I'll have a person here in no time. So if you can see that at home, I want you to go ahead, and now we're going to do the same exercise ourselves so that you can draw a person too. So let's go ahead and flip to a clean sheet of paper. I like to just work on the back of my current sheet just so that I can conserve paper. I actually think that paper is a wonderful resource. I love drawing on paper. I love drawing on paper. I love the way that it feels. I love the way that I can manipulate it. I do have one of those fancy iPads with the drawing technology on there, and it's pretty cool. But there's just something about that pencil in hand, with the page there. Maybe it's because I don't have to charge it. There's no batteries. I don't have to be beholden to that. But I do like that I can take basically a sketchbook with me anywhere, and I don't have to load it. So, okay, now let's begin again. All right, so we're going to draw a person. I'm going to draw the head. Here's my circle for that. And then I'm going to draw the body. So if you're following along at home, I want you to be making the same lines. All right, so we're going to draw the body. We're going to draw the spine. Now I'm going to take a line here. I'm going to draw a wide line, and I'm going to draw a short line. The wide line represents the shoulders. The short line represents the hips. From here, I'm going to draw an upside down heart like that. Do the triangle for my shoulders, and then the ball for my deltoids. Okay? Easy. You guys are doing it nice and easy. Now I'm going to do the scoop for the hips, and I'm beginning to draw a person. Ball socket, Z, Z, and you can do another Z, actually. That's another technique that I like to do, where you can just zigzag and create the legs. It actually works out really nice. And you can almost do the same thing with the forearms too, boop, and the arms, boop. And this time I'm going to send his arm out or her arm out, it doesn't matter, boop, boop, boop. There we go. Now there's an arm out to the side. And that's it. I've got a wireframe ready to go. Now all I've got to do is build on top of that. So again, I'm going to do my shovel face, just like that. Maybe a neck here, there, there. Okay, so now that I've got my basic wireframe, I can start adding musculature to it. I can start adding form to it. Now, earlier I was talking about volume. Volume is basically represented through adding other lines to the form. Okay. So what does that mean? So if I am going to, first of all, let's kind of define a belly button, because a belly button, everybody, just about everybody's got a belly button. Most people do. That's one of those things that just about everybody has. Belly button goes right along the middle part. Most of us fold and collapse right here at the belly buttons. So that's the belly button right there. Midway through the chest is the sternum. So we get the sternum right here. So I've got a horizontal line here, and I've kind of got the same line, but it goes up that way here. The neck is round as well, and the arms are round as well. So you can start to add these hatch marks to create volume so that when you go back onto them, they'll already be there. So when I'm drawing the shoulders in, there's kind of a curve out relationship. Drawing the legs, you tend to see straight lines next to curved lines, straight lines or curved lines next to straight lines. So straight lines, curved lines, straight lines. Especially if you're representing it from the side, which we'll get to. This one is looking a little bit hippier, so maybe it's going to be a female. That's okay. Let's do that. There we go. Okay. So I've got my ribs here, arms here. And okay. Okay, cool. So I've got shape that's coming around here. You know, I could even start to represent kind of flat here. It gets more volume. My cone shape. This is a round shape, so I'm going to start drawing round curves. I'm going to just do a circle for the knees. Round curves to represent the shape. Curves, 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 curves. Volume, 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 volume. This person is got all kinds of volume. You can see. And see, that's the thing that I love about that zigzag line is rather than drawing it right through the object, right through the forearm, I can actually use it to build the outside or the inside of whatever shape it is that I'm doing. So I'm going to do my kind of shovel shape, maybe make it pointy, add a thumb, and let's do another shovel shape and add a thumb inside, use some of that perspective. There we go. And then add some fingers. Just like we did last time where we made the head round and we started adding dimensioning. We're doing that now with the face. We're doing that with the body to represent that this object actually has volume. So if you are following along, I do encourage you to draw the shape down as you see it. If you have questions, now might be a time to shoot a message into the chat and let me know what it is that you have to ask. So if you got that, great. Otherwise, I'm going to keep on keeping on. So there we go. All right. Now let's draw the side profile. So again, it's a lot of the same parts, but we are going to add certain lines and certain types of lines to this process that we didn't do with the front process, right? So a couple of key takeaways from this. The zigzags are really going to come back pretty heavy up here on the side profile. Let me adjust my camera a little bit just so you can see it a little bit better. Good. Okay. So I like to go ahead and define my head here pretty easy. It's the same idea as doing the shovel shape here. It's the shovel shape, but instead of looking at the shovel shape like this, square on, I'm looking at the shovel shape here side to side, right? So I'm looking at it like that. Now, I'm going to use the same technique where I'm defining the body or the spine. But spines are not straight lines. They're actually curved lines. So I'm going to get in here and I'm going to add a slightly curved line, basically an S curve like that to represent the spine. Now, if you got a spine like that, I do encourage you to go to a doctor because you probably need to get something worked out. But nonetheless, there you go. There's my spine. And then there's that same cone idea for the neck. Right? Okay, so from here, this is where I'm only going to draw one of my side hearts or upside down hearts. So I've got the upside down heart idea here where it comes in, you know, that kind of shows the rib cage. Here, the rib cage is here. And then here, I'm going to do this same bowl shape or the same U shape here, or shovel shape, to represent the hips. So from there, all I've got to do is connect these two, and I've got a nice looking torso there. Okay, so I've got now where the hip is. I'm going to bring that out, well, let's see. Bring that out, bring that down, out, down. Cool, just like that. Okay, so from here, remember I talked about the side triangle? Side triangle. It's easy. So basically the feet and the head are stacked. The head should also be on top of the hips if I'm looking at it from the side. If I'm drawing somebody straight up, if I'm drawing somebody, bent over, or they're leaning like, oh, I'm in a precarious position, well then the head is in front of the hips. If somebody's got their head behind their hips, then chances are they're surprised and they're in trouble, right? So this is going to take your stick figure game and like send it off into outer space, man. Whoa! All right. So as I was saying earlier with the straight line versus bumped line. So let's represent that on the legs. The legs are interesting. I actually have some meat right here. This is where we drive power from. That's called the gluteus muscles. They drive a lot of power. They surround the hip on the back side to make cushion. And that is how we get a lot of effort done and controlled. So I'm going to draw a slightly bent straight line here. I'm going to draw a straight line there. Now I'm going to draw a slightly bent line going the other way. And I'm going to draw a straight line here. Notice where that zigzag line is. Looks like it's right where a kneecap would be. Just like it cuts the kneecap in half here. The kneecap is a very complex array of bone and tendons and ligaments and all these little things that make up these little parts that allow us to walk. So we don't have to draw all that to be successful in drawing, but this gives us an idea of what it does take in order to represent it in shorthand, right? Okay, so from here, let's go ahead and add some of our volume lines so that we can understand the roundness of what it is that we're looking at. And I'm just drawing straight lines across because I'm looking at it pretty much square on, right? Now, our chest, if I look at a person, the arms aren't real forward. The arms aren't real forward unless they have bad posture. This particular person, the way that I've drawn them, they've got pretty good posture. Their chest is nice and high. I can see that because the sternum is basically pointing to the sky like this. If the sternum is pointing down, that actually will indicate that that person isn't feeling good. Maybe they're feeling sad. So as we get into posing, which will be our next section, as we get into posing, we'll talk about how to position the body so that it might look happy, so that it might look sad, on and 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 on. Because like I said, the body communicates so much of our emotional state. It's crazy. Now, most arms start back here where the shoulder blades are. The shoulder blades are here. You got the spine like that. They start here and then they come forward so that the hands will hang either a little bit in front or a little bit here to the side, somewhere in here. You're not going to go wrong if your arms are basically here. Okay? So that's shovel shape. That's it. So same idea as the Z. I'm here. Boop. I do that. Boop. Now I got that. The other reason why I like doing the Z, I learned this technique maybe 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, of how to do arms and legs like this. And the reason why I like it so much is often I'm able to represent that twist in the forearms that I was telling you about. Like forearms will look real, you know, cartoonish and flat unless you can like start to give them rotation and a little bit of volume. Because the two bones that are in here, you know, they're moving on top of each other. You can see the twist in my own arm as I represent that. So I like to, when I'm drawing from here, I like to work from basically the back to front. I like to represent the triceps to show where that person's you know, the triceps are right here, they're on the back of the biceps, to really show what that person's arms are doing. If the triceps are straight lines like this, it means that the bicep is probably going to be a curved line. If the bicep is a straight line, that means that the tricep is going to be a curved line, right? So kind of the same opposite relationship as what we get with the legs, where the front of the leg muscle is going to be round and the back is going to tend to be straight. And then the shin is going to be straight where the calf is going to be round. And notice now I'm just throwing down the idea, right? I'm throwing down where I want the figure to be. I'm then going on top of that and refining based on, you know, what features I want to call forward and how I want this body to look, right? So I'm going for a somewhat realistic look. There are ways that you can cheat this and make more cartoonish looking things, but that's, you know, that's for another lesson. So I'm here, and just like I did my curved line here, or more straight line here, curved line here, I'm going to do my more curved line here and then here. And then what I like to do is I like to let that, me personally, my style, I'll clean that up a little bit so it's easier to see. I like to let that Z, that's basically one of the bones that I'm talking about. I'm going to let muscle sit on top of it. There we go. Okay. Now let's talk about adding pectoral muscles. So pectoral muscles are here. They're basically mid-sternum. And then you have your ribs down here. So let me erase these volume lines so you can start to see what I'm talking about. At the base of the neck, we have the clavicle. The clavicle is the front part, which allows for the rotation of our arms this way, right? It's part of the ball socket, and then we have some support here that keeps that from being like going totally loose and flopping around. It's kind of like a counterpoint here. So some people have really deep clavicles, some people don't. So I'm here, and then I'm going to draw basically kind of an additional, so I had my original, I'm going to draw some additional meat on top of the ribs, and that's going to show pectoral muscles, okay, just like that. From the side, pectoral muscles are kind of teardrop shaped. You know, if I'm going to represent them like that, they're almost kind of teardrop shaped. A lot of muscles are going to follow that same pattern that are teardrop. If I look at the upside down rib, it's the upside down heart. It's essentially that same shape. If I think about representing the deltoid or the shoulder muscle, it's also essentially that same shape, just upside down, right? Where I have an upside down teardrop. Biceps are kind of the same. Oh, haha, good catch. Biceps are kind of the same, where it's an upside down teardrop going this way. Forearms, not so much. but you kind of get the idea. Okay, so then I'm going to bring to the bottom of the ribs here. And so if I think about where the elbow terminates, the elbow is that midway point of the arm. It's the hinge. Typically, most elbows terminate right toward the bottom of the ribs. So if I'm thinking about relationships, arms are going to look short or they're going to look long, dependent upon their relationship to the person's ribs. So as I'm drawing the figure, I want to make sure that I'm keeping that ratio in point. A good shorthand is to think about the rotational part, like the Vitruvian Man that Da Vinci drew. If I wanted to represent the arm in space, well, I know where the ratio is. I'm just going to keep it on the same circle so that my elbow is always in the same distance, rather than having one super far arm or one super short arm. That just doesn't make sense, and it's not going to read. See, the eye has got this way to look at a drawing of a person and be like, that's not real. I don't think so. I don't buy it. And a lot of it just comes down to the proportions that the artist is using. Okay, so then we get into here where we get into the back and the tummy, right? So earlier, I'm going to just beef up this person's back. So the back, the bicep, or excuse me, the pectorals are countered by the lat muscle. The lat muscle is what allows us to pull and basically control things closer to our bodies. The pectorals are pushing muscles, so they move things away. The way that we're able to stand is we have a tension between push and pull. And so as we represent that in art form, we need to make sure that we're showing the way that the tension is doing, or at least understanding that that's what it is that we're actually seeing from a physiological standpoint or from a musculature standpoint. So here, and basically those muscles are going to lay right on top of the ribs because that's where they live. They connect to the ribs. They're part of the rib. I'm not going to do a specific anatomical drawing during this class. I want to show you the basics of how to lay a person down on the page, at least during this class. We'll get into rendering more specifics like, how do I do specific pectoral drawings, or how do I do I don't know, ribs, or just anything that you might be able to think about. How do I do a belly button? I don't know. There's all sorts of different ways. Okay, so I'm here. Basically, now I've got to connect the abdominals to the back and the back here. So notice I'm starting with that same idea where I'm following this S curve, front, and curve in like that. And then that is going to connect and make the person. Cool? Is that making sense? Everybody seeing that? So just like I've got the belly button here, the belly button is here. Most people, they got that six-pack thing going on where they got these nice, cute little two things here. That's nice. Then they get that extra one that's on the bottom. Some people like to take extra enhancements and they get some more, or they use Photoshop, and that's cool. But generally speaking, most people have 3 bumps. 1, 2. The 2 happen before the ribs, or before the belly button, and then the last kind of happen after the belly button. Then you wind up with a different muscle group as you work into the pelvis. And then you start to get into tendons and hip flexors and all sorts of things beyond the concept of this class. All right, get to the glutes, get to the hamstrings. You can, depending on how musculature centric you want to be, you can start to add some curve out to really show a developed hamstring. But it will kind of look awkward if you're not, if you haven't already set the stage, like the person's super muscular, or if they're more skinny. I'm drawing a lot of muscles on here just so that you can show, I can show you how it falls onto the body. I can certainly take these proportions and hulkify them, right? Where I've got like great big old muscles here. Wow, man, like you would definitely take a can of spaghetti that's hard to open to this person because, for sure that with arms like this, they're going to be able to get into anything. But it's kind of weird. But anyway, okay. So then we get into the quads. Let's talk a little bit about the knee. I typically like to draw the knee a lot like I like to draw ears, like I taught how to draw ears. Basically a hexagon shape where I've got this thing going on here like that. It cuts in the middle because that's where my fold is. That connects, and then that connects, just like that. So that's how I like to do the knee. It allows me to separate the leg and show that. What'll also make a knee more successful is drawing the back side of the knee and the tendons that connect the back of the leg, right, or to the back of the leg here. Next time you're out in public and you are safely social distancing, you're staying 6 feet away from people, look at the back of someone's legs. If you look at the back of someone's legs, and not in like a weird way, guys, I mean, like, feel like my art teacher told me to look at your legs like real long, right? If I'm looking at a calf here like this, I'll see a box here on the back. What I'm seeing here is kind of the support musculature, but behind the knee and all that's going on. So if you can see this drawing here, I know I should get bigger paper, but I'm having fun. So that's all that really matters for me, having fun. So if I'm looking at someone's leg here like this, I see the back of the leg. There's the calf. I see that box right there. And that box is right here. Okay. Now I'm bringing the straight here to represent the shin. I would not like do funky shapes to represent the shin because that just doesn't make sense. You basically have a straight line, S curve. So S curve, straight line. And now I have the building blocks of a solid leg design. And then we'll get into the feet. So I typically, right around here is the ankle that allows us to do this here. It's kind of the same anatomy here as this kind of ankle bone or I don't even know what that's called, man. Actually, it's a kind of a weird bump. Mine's kind of big. I don't know if I should get that checked out, actually. It's a little weird. Anyway, so it's kind of the same thing, and I'm tracing the outside of that. That's how I come and arrive to the ankle. I can use the same kind of shape idea, though, where I'm back to the hexagon to represent the ankle. And then the top of the foot, remember I started with a triangle, then I built out. Feet are interesting. You can do all kinds of things with feet. I like to think about feet as two separate triangles because that's the way that I draw them, or maybe a box with a triangle for the front. I've got the termination of the legs here that go all the way down. So the tibia and fibula, that's what the bones are called under the kneecap, the tibia and fibula. This is the radius and ulna up in here. The tibia and fibula terminate at the end of the heel, and that's where we get that strong heel. And then we have these itty bitty, what are called metatarsals. So we've got metatarsals are toes. You've got tarsals. So in your hands, you've got these little bones, 4 long bones that connect your wrist to your finger. Those are called carpals, C-A-R-P-A-L. In your toes, you've got the same thing, but they're called tarsals. And I believe they're spelled T-A-R-S-A-L-S, tarsals, because there's more than one. Or you can have just the singular tarsal. Phil, do you happen to know? No, I think he's checking Instagram. Okay. At any rate, so I'm here and I've drawn this foot, And because I've done this, I can draw more triangles, more triangles, more triangles, triangles, triangles. And simply by sticking with my triangle idea, I can start to draw pretty detailed toes. I always do a big toe because, the fun thing about art is it does tend to be somewhat autobiographical. And I've got pretty big toes. I don't really have notchy feet though. I can draw some notchy feet, but just like that, I was able to draw a pretty interesting looking forward facing toe, draw my tarsals, and there you go. Now I've got a foot that looks like it's coming at you. How about that? Coming at you. So that's pretty much what I had prepared for today. In our next class, Learn to Draw People 3, we're going to talk about posing the body. We're going to talk about making the body look like it's sitting, standing, running, jumping. We're going to talk about the dynamics between the shoulders and the hips. A lot of times these things work in opposition to each other. So that's going to be on the agenda for next week. I do want to end today's video lesson really just talking about the role of progress in our lives. I'm excited that you're here with me and that you've joined me to learn to draw, and I'm glad that we are drawing together. Sometimes as you're starting a new skill or working on something that you haven't really done before, it's easy to get defeated because maybe you see someone who's really good and you wish that you could be at whatever skill level it is that they're at. And that's totally reasonable. I have that same fault in my thinking too, where I see somebody, I'm like, dang man, I wish I could be that good at it. But it takes time. Often you get wonderful effects. I actually did some math, so we're going to talk about math here in a second. You get some wonderful effects by compounding small percentage growth over time. So what do I mean by that? So typical month has got about 30 days. And let's just say that each day you're not trying to, become perfect in any sort of way. But in 30 days, you want to make a 1% improvement. And every day you're just getting 1% better. That's it. You're not trying to get 10% better. You're not trying to get 20% or 50% better. Just 1%. Over a month, over 30 iterations, 1% grows to 34%. So instead of 30 days, you actually get some bonus growth. So that's pretty easy math. You can take 1.01, square it to the power of 30, and you'll wind up with 1.3478. And really that's a lesson to show that just that small improvement, that small incremental movement from, where you were to the next step, little by little, eventually you'll get there and you'll get good. So be encouraged, keep drawing. I would love to see what kind of drawings you've made, what kind of people you are able to build. Play with some of the proportions. I showed you pretty orthodox looking proportions in today's video. As we do the shaping video where we start to show you how to put dynamics onto the form, we'll start talking about changing proportions of maybe making the ribs really big or making the ribs really small, making the arms. I mean, we kind of talked about it with the Hulk arms, but making the arms really big or making the head really small or making the head really big and the body really small. I mean, this is the fun thing about art is that you can do, the imagination is endless. I mean, you can do all kinds of possibilities. So thank you for watching. I'm so glad that you're here, and I will see you next week for our next time that we get to draw together. So have a great day, and I will see you around.